Good morning, everyone. The plastic bag, a thing of progress. When they were introduced in the 1970s, plastic bags were seen as better than the paper bags that they replaced. They were cheaper, stronger, used less material, and fewer trees are cut down to make plastic bags than paper bags. They were environmentally friendly. So much so that in 2001, we used somewhere around 1 trillion of them worldwide. The disposable bag, as we know, is not really disposable. The plastic water bottle. In 2011, Americans drank 34.4 billion litres of bottled water, and that was 4% more than in 2010. Plastic bottles are safer than glass. They're lighter than glass, and so they use less carbon as they're transported. They're better. But are they? Really? We solved the problem of convenient drinking water, but we've made a massive new problem of waste. And yet we all use them every day. The energy-saving light bulb, the incandescent light bulb replaced by something better, the energy-saving light bulb. It uses less energy when you switch it on, it lasts for longer, but while we threw the old ones out, these ones have to be recycled to stop mercury leaching into the ecosystem. And recycling uses a lot of energy, and many people don't recycle them. Is this better? Well, of course, it's much more complicated than that. But we assume that design and engineering will make things better. We take for granted that's what they do. But what do we mean by better? Do we mean longer lasting, cheaper, more sustainable, more high-tech? Better for whom? Whose better ultimately shapes our common future? The plastic bag, the plastic bottle, and the energy-saving light bulb are all really common examples of how design and engineering and technology can take a problem and solve it, but give us more problems in the process. 80% of the environmental impact of the products, services, and infrastructure around us is determined at the design stage. Yet we keep on doing the same things over and over again and expect different results. And what do we often call such behavior? Insanity. Einstein said a lot of clever things. This one's just attributed to him, but he did also say this. We can't solve problems by using the same kind of thinking we used when we created them. And I think as designers and engineers, working together, we can. And I think we must do much more than this, solve problems. We need to challenge those problems and ask different, more relevant questions. Yes. Engineering design is about solving problems. But design, and I am a designer, so this is a caveat, is about something different. I think it's about possibility, life as it could be. Design makes new possibilities out of existing matter. It projects into our future. But designers have become problem solvers too. I think we need to get back to this idea that design can help shape our future. And it's to the future that I look now. Today I'd like to talk about how we might use design to help ask better questions instead of solving the wrong problems. Can design take a useful role upstream in the development of new technologies to help ask better questions? By affecting the direction a technology takes before we even get to problem solving, can we use design to help alter the future? This is something I've been experimenting with in my own practice, and today I'd like to tell you about an unfamiliar field that I've been working in as a designer to ask these kinds of new questions, and to tell you about a project that's designing different ways of thinking. And I'd like to share with you some of the collaborations that I think hint at new ways of working. So I'm a designer, but for the last 5 years I've been interested in this, and we learned a bit about it yesterday. This is a plate of agar jelly that's covered in bacteria, and they were engineered by undergraduates so that they go dark when they're exposed to light, like photographic film. And they called it E-Polaroid, because all biological designs need a good name. This is synthetic biology in a basic form. And as we learned yesterday, its aim is to make biology and biological engineering more like computer science, standardized, predictable, repeatable. And its supporters believe that biological engineering like this could solve our problems and make the world a better place through applications like materials, fuels, energy, and food. Biology, and life with it, is just becoming a 21st century material for design. But as an emerging field, there is as yet little precedent for what design means or fixed role for it, and which is why I think it's a really valuable space to test out new ideas about what design could be. Because at the moment, the focus is problem solving. How do we make yeast make jet fuel, or bacteria make rubber for tires, or non-biodegradable plastics? The same things that we already have. What could be a disruptive technology risks disrupting nothing. I think we need not only to solve the problem, how do we make yeast make jet fuel, which is a big problem for the scientists, but we need to actually challenge that question. How do we make alternatives to jet fuel? And how do we use less fuel? Instead of just making technology to solve our problems, I think we need to ask why we're making it and what we want from it. And I think this is where novel and ethical innovation could happen that's better. So how do we bring this kind of thinking into the lab? So I'm going to tell you about one project I've been part of, Synthetic Aesthetics, running since 2010 and funded by the NSF and the EPSRC. We brought 6 artists and designers from very different disciplines into collaborations with synthetic biologists in labs and studios through residencies all over the world to think about these questions. Can you design nature? If we can, how do you design nature? And most importantly, how would you design it well? They crashed their ways of working and thinking together and bringing critical discourse into the lab and the studio. And I'll tell you about 3 of the projects. We paired an architect and a plant scientist together. And you'd think there'd be nothing in common between what they do, but actually there was real overlap in the tools that they used. Fernand uses 3D models out of the data that he collects from plant cells, and David, the architect, uses biologically inspired genetic algorithms to design buildings. So they took artichoke cells, xylem cells from the artichokes, and looked at how they grow. They actually solve the spatial problems between themselves and their neighbors. And they worked with a computer scientist to actually extract this data and turn it into a kind of computer program that they could apply to other spatial problems to solve them. And what they're doing is actually challenging a core belief in synthetic biology, that DNA programmed makes a biological computer. For them, the whole cell and its natural logic becomes the processor. And what they're doing is actually challenging a fundamental belief and presenting a new model and creating new spaces for research. We put 2 product designers from IDEO, a firm known for its design thinking, together with 2 cell biologists. And 2 things emerged from this that I found really interesting. The first was that, as a designer, I expect a messy process as I'm trying to work out what to make. There's an existential crisis somewhere along the way, and that's normal. But for science, it's told as a straight story. We did this, we found this. But science is inherently a creative process too. There is a messy sort of design process that goes on behind the scenes, and I think hiding this is restrictive to innovation. The second thing that the designers discovered is that this easy-to-engineer biological future is not here yet. We read about it, but it's very far away. So they had to resort to designing fictions like this one out of their workshops with the scientists. So this is a rendering of a future where maybe we'd grow cups in the lab and they'd contain bacteria, and as you drank water from them, the bacterial nutrients would be released. But what's important here is this. I think it's this idea of bringing science, like early stage sort of fundamentals, into a commercial design firm, and design thinking from a commercial side into a scientific laboratory. What kinds of new thinking would emerge? Could a design firm actually help identify what good practice would be for biological design? And could we see departments like MIT's Media Lab emerge where biological design and scientific research are happening alongside each other? I'll tell you about one more of the projects. Now, we paired a biologist with a smell artist, and they wanted to challenge this idea that we have a cultural fear of biology. And they saw a conflict between the antibacterial world that we live in, where we're spraying and killing everything, with this future that's promised that's going to be powered by bacteria. This is the human microbiome. We are covered inside and out with bacteria. We're increasingly understanding how much we rely on them to live. And some of those bacteria are found elsewhere. If anyone's ever had Limburger cheese, Limburger smells like feet because the same bacteria that are on your feet are in the cheese. So could you make cheese out of human bacteria? Well, Yes, this is how cheese is made. As you're stirring the curds, your hands are in there and bacteria comes off them. Definitely adds to the flavour. So Christina and Cecil decided to take samples from the human microbiome and make cheese. Now, as you can see, my armpit cheese was either the wrong place at the right time or right place at the wrong time. But I don't think this is going to solve a grand challenge. I'd like to say that. But I think it's really important. Context is everything. Not just for bacteria, but for the things that we make and design, whether they're biological or more traditional plastic bottles, for example. The things we design, we cannot separate them from the context that they sit in. We cannot separate them from the ecosystem or from our behaviors. We are what we eat, but in a synthetic biological future, it may be that we eat what we are. We're much closer to the bacteria we're planning to engineer than abstract discussions of engineering we can relate. Human cheese makes our symbiosis with bacteria tangible and, well, smellable too. So I've just finished writing a book about this for MIT Press, which will come out next year. And I think what's so important is that 20 participants from completely different backgrounds, from architecture to music to protocells, have come together to address fundamental questions about what it means to design nature. And I think it's also key that this research was funded by science and engineering and not by arts and design, because it's meant that these kinds of questions and discussions go straight back into the scientific and engineering context, as well as feeding into the design and arts and policy communities. And this openness to discussion and ideas and questioning and experimentation is the real achievement here. The social, ethical and cultural implications are brought into the engineering design process. Implications and applications are inseparable. We need more projects like this, so that's a call out now. I've spoken today about how we must challenge the very nature of what we thought were the problems, and I've given a few examples of how design and art can come earlier in the development of new technologies to help us open up new areas of thought. I've touched on how we can do more than ask better questions. By asking better questions, we can actually give ourselves better problems to solve. So what are the right problems? Well, I think this is all about opening the debate, and that's the work that lies ahead. But I really believe that by asking better questions, we will have problems to solve that are better. Thank you.